Week 13 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few running backs I looked at off the wire this week. The first back, Amir Abdullah of the Las Vegas Raiders. Abdullah got the start in the Week 12 loss versus the Denver Broncos, and he looked good, Abdullah, better than Alexander Madison and Zamir White have looked all season, and they obviously were out and missed this game. So Week 11 in Miami, 1 carry, 1 rush yards, 3 catches, 16 yards, a touchdown. And Week 12 versus Denver, like I said, a solid game. 8 carries, 28 yards, 5 catches, 37 yards, and a touchdown. So Week 13, no doubt about it, a tough matchup at the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, every team is playing this week as well. And the Chiefs, their defense has been good versus the run all season long, giving up the least amount of fantasy points to running backs. So Amir Abdullah, though, he's a starting running back as of now. We don't know if Alexander Madison or White are returning. And he's available in tons of fantasy leagues in 76%. So if you need a running back or a depth piece, I think Abdullah could be a decent one this week. And he's an ad. Next back, Roscoe Johnson of the Chicago Bears. I mentioned Roscoe Johnson a few times on the waiver wire this season. And I know you pretty much have to hope he falls into the end zone and gets 20 or 30 yards. And that's what he's been doing at the goal line back over the last few weeks here for this Chicago Bear team. Week 10 versus New England, 1 carry, -4 yards in that ball game, a catch, 5 yards. Week 11 versus the Green Bay Packers, 10 carries, 33 yards, a touchdown, a catch, 8 yards. And Week 12 in the overtime loss versus the Vikings, a great defense, 2 carries, 2 yards, a touchdown, a catch, 10 yards. So like I said, Roscoe Johnson, he's not doing much for this Bear team, but he's getting the goal line stampers, like I said. In games where they were leading this season, Chicago is where he's been used efficiently, and more was Roscoe Johnson, because we know DeAndre Swift's the starting running back. And at this point of the season, it's tough to find breakout running backs, and guys are going to step in and start. So Johnson right now out there in 72% of fantasy leagues, and a good handcuff back, and productive at times in 12-team leagues or deeper. And he's there this week. The next running back, Ray Davis of the Buffalo Bills. I've mentioned Davis a lot as well on the list, and obviously he had the bye week in Week 12, but one of the best handcuffs in all fantasy football and pro football, in my opinion, is the rookie Ray Davis, out there in 84% of fantasy league. We've seen at times we had a decent amount of touches. He went out there and put up numbers. Week 6 at the Jets, he started 20 carries, 97 yards, 3 catches, 55 yards. Week 7 versus Tennessee, 5 carries, 41 yards, a touchdown, a catch, 2 yards. Then go to Week 9 versus the Dolphins, 4 carries, 20 yards, 2 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown. And then the last couple weeks, I know he's been phased out a little bit, where they've been throwing a little bit more, is this Buffalo Bill team. But like I said, if James Cook ever went down with injury, Ray Davis could step right in and be a top 15, 20 running back weekly for fantasy owners. And he's an ad in deeper leagues. Next back, Antonio Gibson of the New England Patriots. Gibson, he's the backup, obviously, to Ramondre Stevenson, and he's been non-existent, his numbers, over the last month of the season. So the last couple games, Week 11 versus the Rams in that one, 4 carries, 18 yards, a catch, 2 yards in that one. Week 12 at the Dolphins, 6 carries, 31 yards, a catch, 14 yards. And now Week 13, a pretty good matchup here versus the Indianapolis Colts. So Stevenson, the last couple weeks, the numbers have dropped off. Gibson got a little bit more playing time, like I said, over the last few weeks. And we know he's a better receiver out of the backfield than Ramondre Stevenson. But this New England Patriot offense is one of the worst offenses in the league. And it's tough for them to put up points week in and week out offensively, especially out of Antonio Gibson or pretty much anyone in the offense. Douglas, he's been up and down this year. Hunter Henry as well. And right now, as a one who's a handcuff running back, again this week, is Gibson, and he's available in 87% of fantasy leagues. And the final running back I looked here off the wire this week is Jaleel McLaughlin of the Denver Broncos. So weekly it just changes who's the running back over there leading in touch. Week 12, the Jaleel McLaughlin led in touches for this Denver Bronco team. Javonte Williams didn't do much after a big game, and Audric Estime only had 3 carries, 15 yards in the Week 12 game. So the last few weeks here for McLaughlin, Week 10 at Kansas City, 2 carries, 12 yards. Week 11 versus Atlanta, 4 carries, 19 yards. And Week 12 at the Raiders, 7 carries, 44 yards. It's a disaster, obviously, in the backfield. Weekly, you don't know who's going to produce and put up numbers for this Denver Bronco team. Last week, it was Jaleel McLaughlin. And after seeing that, now you go out there and get him on the waiver wire. I'm not saying you pick him up and he's going to put up big numbers, but right now, as of last week, he was the lead back for this Denver Bronco team, and he's available in 89% of fantasy leagues. That's a few running backs I looked at off the wire for Week 13 of the fantasy football season.